God bless everyone. Today, I bring you the extraordinary testimony of Michael Andrews, a 48-year-old investment banker from New York, whose life took a dramatic turn after an otherworldly journey he could never have imagined. What he experienced was both shocking and transformative, a haunting realm of reckoning where he came face to face with none other than Jeffrey Epstein. The encounter revealed chilling truths about power, corruption, and redemption that will leave you questioning everything. Now, I will read Michael's letter exactly as he shared it, and together, we will uncover his sin and the profound reason why Jeffrey Epstein was there. My name is Michael Andrews, and for the last 20 years, I lived a life most people would envy. As a top investment banker in New York, I had built a career that put me at the center of power and influence. My days were filled with high-stakes negotiations, private jets, and exclusive invitations to events attended by the elite. I was well-connected and thrived in the fast-paced world where deals were made and fortunes were built. I knew how to play the game, and I played it well, climbing higher with each calculated move. To everyone around me, I had it all: wealth, success, and status. But the truth is, I had become a prisoner of my own ambition, chasing a version of success that always seemed just out of reach. I wasn't always this way. I grew up in a small town, raised by parents who instilled in me strong moral principles and a belief in the importance of faith. I was taught that integrity mattered more than success, that compassion outweighed ambition. But somewhere along the way, as I entered the cutthroat world of finance, those values began to fade. The demands of my profession were relentless, and I quickly learned that the rules of success didn't leave much room for morality. I told myself that cutting corners and making ethically gray decisions were just part of the job, the price I had to pay to stay ahead in a hyper-competitive world. Over time, I became so consumed by the pursuit of power and status that I barely recognized the man I had become. My lifestyle mirrored my priorities. Lavish dinners, extravagant vacations, and a wardrobe that spoke of my success were all part of the image I carefully curated. I justified it all, convincing myself that I was doing what was necessary to maintain my place in the elite circles I had worked so hard to enter. But beneath the surface, I felt a growing emptiness, a nagging sense that something was missing. I ignored it, drowning it out with the next deal, the next promotion, the next indulgence. Little did I know that my world was about to be shattered. The life I had built so meticulously was on the verge of unraveling, and what lay ahead would force me to confront not just my choices, but the very foundation of who I was. What happened next would change everything. It was supposed to be just another routine meeting, albeit one with the potential to secure a deal worth millions. I sat at the polished table in a sleek Manhattan skyscraper, surrounded by sharp suits and the hum of high-stakes negotiation. The tension in the room was palpable, as numbers and strategies were exchanged like weapons in a silent battle. My heart was racing, but I dismissed it as the adrenaline of the moment. Then, out of nowhere, a sharp pain tore through my chest. It was unlike anything I'd ever felt, intense and unforgiving. My breath caught, and the edges of my vision began to blur. I clutched the table, my confidence replaced by panic. Voices around me rose in alarm, chairs scraped back, and someone shouted for help, but their words sounded distant, as if they belonged to another world. I remember collapsing, my body hitting the cold floor as the chaos unfolded above me. My chest felt like it was being crushed under an invisible weight, and every breath became a struggle. I could hear my colleagues shouting and the sound of hurried footsteps, but those noises began to fade. I felt an overwhelming sense of detachment, as if my body was no longer my own. I was aware of the paramedics arriving, their hands pressing on my chest, their voices calm but urgent. But even as they fought to bring me back, I could feel myself slipping further away. The pain began to fade, replaced by a strange numbness, and then by something else entirely, a pull, a force I couldn't resist, drawing me into a swirling void. At first, the void was terrifying, a dark expanse that seemed endless and alive, its silence louder than the chaos I had just left behind. But as I drifted further into it, the fear began to subside, replaced by an unsettling calm. I was suspended, weightless, no longer tied to the life I had known. The pain, the noise, the urgency, all of it seemed irrelevant now. I didn't know where I was or what was happening, but I knew one thing for certain. I was no longer in control. The pull grew stronger, and I felt myself moving deeper into the void, drawn toward something unknown. Questions raced through my mind, but they were swallowed by the emptiness around me. What was this place, and where was it taking me? I couldn't stop now. I had to see what lay ahead. As I drifted further into the void, the darkness began to take form. Shapes emerged, shifting and unsettling, until I found myself standing in an environment that felt as though it had been ripped from a nightmare. Towering walls of shadow stretched endlessly into a skyless abyss, their surfaces alive with flickering lights that pulsed like faint, dying stars. These lights weren't comforting, they were revealing. Each one seemed to hold a hidden truth, a moment frozen in time, distorted yet unmistakably real. The air was thick and cold, and the silence was broken only by faint whispers, indistinct but laden with accusation. I felt as though I had been thrust into a place where the darkest aspects of humanity came to bear witness against me, and I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched. Then, through the shifting shadows, I saw him, Jeffrey Epstein. His figure stood out in stark contrast to the desolate surroundings, a presence both commanding and sinister. His posture was confident, yet his face bore an expression of weariness and regret, as though he were aware of the weight he carried, but powerless to escape it. Around him swirled ghostly figures, shadowy and undefined, their forms whispering accusations and bearing the scars of untold stories. It was as if these shadows were tethered to him, haunting reminders of the lives he had affected, the damage left in his wake. His presence was magnetic and repellent all at once, drawing me closer despite the fear clawing at my chest. Before I could process what I was seeing, a voice filled my mind, not spoken aloud, but telepathic, a presence that seemed to speak from within the walls themselves. It was calm, measured, and devastatingly clear. It revealed the duality of Epstein's life. A man who had wielded immense wealth and influence, using it to manipulate and control, but whose empire of deceit ultimately crumbled under the weight of his sins. As the voice narrated, the flickering lights around me began to shift, displaying glimpses of Epstein's most infamous moments, his rise to power, the lives shattered by his actions, the betrayals and exploitation that defined his legacy. I couldn't look away. The images burned into my mind, not just as a record of what he had done, but as a reflection of the choices I had justified in my own life. The walls seemed to hum with energy, as if urging me to confront a truth I wasn't ready to face. What was this place trying to reveal to me? And why had Epstein become the central figure in this haunting realm? The answers felt close, but the weight of them was almost too much to bear. The environment I found myself in was unlike anything I could have imagined. Cold, oppressive, and alive with a sense of dread that seemed to seep into my very bones. The walls around me weren't solid but shadowed, their surfaces shifting and morphing like living things. Every movement revealed glimpses of something hidden, flickering images of betrayal, exploitation, and deep, unrelenting regret. These weren't just random scenes, they felt purposeful, as if the walls were exposing truths that demanded to be seen. I couldn't escape the feeling that this place wasn't just around me, but inside me, pulling at the corners of my mind, forcing me to confront things I had spent my life avoiding. The air was suffocating, heavy with an invisible weight that pressed down on my chest and made every breath feel like a battle. There was a metallic tang to it, sharp and bitter, that seemed to carry the essence of fear and despair. It clung to me, filling my senses and making it impossible to ignore the atmosphere of anguish. From somewhere in the distance, whispers rose and fell, indistinct but undeniably there. They mixed with faint cries, some filled with sorrow, others with desperation. It was a chorus of regret and pain, and the more I listened, the more I felt its truth resonate within me. Each sound seemed to pull me deeper into the reality of this place, its purpose unraveling piece by piece. The light here was no comfort either. It flickered sporadically, casting brief flashes of illumination before retreating into shadow. This interplay of light and darkness was unsettling, creating a rhythm of visibility and obscurity that felt deliberate. Each moment of light revealed fleeting images that struck like daggers, faces filled with anguish, scenes of broken trust, and the heavy price of selfish choices. But just as I began to grasp what I was seeing, the shadows would return, leaving me in uncertainty and forcing me to anticipate what would come next. The shifting light seemed to mirror the conflict within me, exposing truths I didn't want to see while daring me to look closer. What was this realm trying to reveal? The answer felt closer with every step, and I knew I had no choice but to keep moving forward. Just as the oppressive darkness seemed to close in around me, a blinding light pierced through the shadows. It wasn't just light. It was alive, radiating warmth, peace, and a power that was both overwhelming and calming. The flickering lights, the whispers, and the faint cries of anguish all ceased in an instant, silenced as if commanded by this presence. The walls of shadow crumbled into nothingness, and I felt the heavy weight that had been pressing on my soul lift. Then, from within the light, I saw him. Jesus stood before me, his presence unlike anything I had ever encountered. He exuded peace and truth, yet there was a strength in him that left no room for doubt or fear. He didn't speak right away. Instead, his gaze met mine, and in that moment, I felt seen, not just for who I was, but for every choice I had ever made. When he spoke, his voice wasn't loud, but it resonated with a power that reached into the depths of my being. "Power is not meant for control but for service," he said, each word cutting through the layers of justification I had built around my actions. "Redemption begins with acknowledging your sins and using your influence to heal, not harm." His words were simple but profound, and they reverberated through me like an unshakable truth. I saw flashes of my own life, moments when I had used my position to serve myself, times when I had prioritized ambition over integrity. But his words didn't condemn me. They offered a way forward, a path of redemption that I hadn't believed possible. I felt both humbled and uplifted, as if the very foundation of my existence had been shifted. The light around him grew even brighter, enveloping me in its warmth, and I knew my journey was far from over. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in a hospital bed. The sterile scent of the room hit me first, followed by the sight of my family gathered around me. Their faces were etched with relief and love, and tears welled up in my own eyes as I realized how close I had come to losing everything. My body was weak, but my spirit felt renewed, as if a veil had been lifted and I could finally see clearly. I knew that the life I had been living, the deals, the power plays, the constant pursuit of more, couldn't continue. I resolved to use what I had been given, not for selfish gain, but to uplift others and make amends for the harm I had caused. Yet, even as I made this vow, questions lingered. Why had Jeffrey Epstein been such a central figure in my vision? What deeper truths about power, corruption, and redemption was I meant to uncover? I felt that the answers were still unfolding, waiting for me to seek them out. And for the first time in years, I felt ready to face them. As I reflect on this incredible experience and the profound truths it revealed, I can't help but wonder, what do you think? Have you ever questioned the purpose of power, the weight of influence, or the paths we choose in life? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. What do you make of my vision, the encounter with Jeffrey Epstein, and the message from Jesus? How do you interpret the ideas of redemption and using our gifts for good? Let's start a meaningful conversation. I'm eager to hear your insights and perspectives.